DeSantis also now has to contend with a new lawsuit just filed by Disney, which sued the governor yesterday, alleging DeSantis and other officials committed constitutional violations during a, quote, targeted campaign of government retaliation. It came minutes after a board, which was appointed by the governor to oversee Disney's district, voted to pass a resolution that transfers some of Walt Disney World's self-governing power to the state. The federal civil suit argues DeSantis' actions are part of a, quote, relentless campaign to weaponize government power over the company.
As DeSantis continues his so-called war on woke, new polling is taking a look at what Americans think of that word and larger issues of social justice and race in the United States. For those numbers, let's bring in NBC News national correspondent Steve Kornacki, the big board. You know, Steve, wokeism, or however you want to define it, political correctness in the past, not popular, never been popular with Republicans, but also not popular with a lot of Democrats. I do wonder, though, if the word's just been used so much that it now ceases to have any real meaning attached to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question we have from our NBC poll. Again, we took over the last week or so. New questions here we can show you that really get to this question of social change in the country, some attitudes on cultural issues. And I think what emerges is a picture of a country, obviously, that's divided in many ways. That's no surprise. But also, I think it gets to what you're saying, Joe. Different terms can mean different things to different people simultaneously. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'll take you through some of these numbers here. We ask a very basic question here. We ask, do you think American society is racist? And there is actually widespread in our poll agreement that it is. Nearly 60%, 59% saying yes. And if you take a look here and just break this down by race, there is a majority. It's a smaller majority, but a majority of white Americans feel that way. And then larger majorities of African Americans and Hispanics feel the same way, too. So on the question of is America racist, you're getting that nearly 60% of the country saying yes. OK, so what do you do about that? One of the solutions that's been in place now for decades in this country has been affirmative action programs. So what we asked in this poll was asked a question, basically giving people two choices here. Affirmative action. Is it still needed and is it still a good idea as long as there are no rigid quotas? That's what we asked in this poll. And a majority, 53%, agreed with that. The other option that we gave was that affirmative action goes too far. It should be ended because it discriminates against whites and Asian Americans. 42% agreed with that statement. If you want to break that down by party, you can see Democrats overwhelmingly say they're fine with affirmative action. Republicans overwhelmingly say they're opposed. And it's the independents. It's that independent vote there, that independent slice of the opinion that kind of makes the difference and that kind of is in line with the overall number. I would say one interesting note on this. While you can see this in our poll when we ask it this way, there was one big ballot test for affirmative action in the last couple of years, and it came in a big and deeply blue state, and that was California. And California, by initiative about a generation ago, had banned public sector affirmative action. Well, 2 years ago, supporters of affirmative action put it on the ballot in California, same day Joe Biden romped in the state to restore affirmative action in the public sector in California. It went down to defeat. That proposition went down to defeat by 16 points in California. So while you are seeing double-digit support here for the concept of affirmative action as we outline it in this poll, you have to keep in mind what happened in a very, very big blue state when affirmative action was on the ballot in 2020. That's what I mean about maybe some mixed signals. Here's also what we talk about with mixed signals. Now, are you familiar with the term woke? 3/4 of Americans say they are familiar with the term woke. OK, what does it mean to you, those who are familiar with it? Does it make you more or less favorably inclined to someone or something who's identified as woke? And by about a 2-to-1 margin, people, that has a negative connotation. The term has a negative connotation. You look across party lines here. Among Democrats, it's more positive. Among Republicans, it's deeply unpopular. But there it is. It's among independents. The word woke has a very negative connotation with Republican voters. And then when I say different things can mean different things to different people at the same time, here's what I mean. We ran a number of statements by people and asked basically, does this describe your view? So we asked folks, the statement, our country needs to do more to increase social justice. 70% said they agreed with that. Wow. 7 out of 10. Pretty big support there. Our country needs to reduce political correctness and cancel culture. Not quite 70%, but basically 2/3 also agree with that. Or if you look at it this way, our country should be more tolerant of the LGBTQ community. 61% say they agree with that. Put it this way, if you ask it this way, we have gone too far in promoting LGBTQ lifestyles in our culture. Almost the same number. Nearly 60% say yes. So when you look at the contours of our political debate and how the two parties are kind of aligning themselves in these questions, a lot of these statements you might think would be in opposition to each other and would polarize, and yet you run these statements, all four of these statements by people, and you're finding big majority support for it. So like I say, there is a lot of measures of divisiveness that comes through on social and cultural issues in this poll, but I think there's also a lot of sort of interpretive room here when you start to look at it.
Well, you know, and we've talked about this a lot, Eddie, on the show. And again, I think as far as just woke, the term woke, it's been used so much that it means absolutely nothing at this point. But, you know, those conflicts that we see between different things, you hear it in conversation. We hear it in conversations all the time when we're off the set with people who believe in more social justice, think we need to move more towards social justice, support affirmative action, think the country needs to do more on the issues of race. You go through all that. At the same time, they oppose political correctness, woke culture, and cancel culture on LGBTQ issues. The same people that would be the first to say we need to be more tolerant, we need to be more supportive of the LGBTQ community, will also say, all right, so why did a male swimmer who transitioned to becoming a woman, why is she able to now compete with other women swimmers who, you know, post-puberty? So this is all very complicated stuff. That last thing I talked about, that we've talked about before here, 82% of Americans say post-puberty, people who transition post-puberty should not be able to compete against those who did not transition post-puberty. At the same time, a large segment of those people would be the first to say we need to be more supportive of the LGBTQ community. So a lot of complicated issues here that, you know, it seems to me the right political leader could get their arms around and sort of synthesize these conflicts.
Yeah, Joe, I think we have to understand the way in which wokeness has been deployed in our political debate at this current moment. And I think you're absolutely right. It's too broad to be meaningful. It's overused in so many ways. I like to use the word because it reminds me of Henry David Thoreau, but that's a different kind of point. But I think also we need to understand this social science paradox that's always been a part of American public opinion research. And that is, we can tell a story about the increasing toleration of the American public with regards to issues of race. That is to say, you poll Americans in 1950 around desegregating schools, they're against it. You polled them in 1980, they're for it. They're not for segregation in that way. But then when we think about remedies for racial inequality, the increasing attitude of toleration with regards to folk doesn't match to how we would resolve the persistent inequality that defines the country. So people will say that they're committed to social justice, but they're not committed to how we remedy social injustice. And that's been a paradox in the social science literature around public opinion in the United States with regards to race, with regards to gender, with regards to gay liberation, and a range of other things. So this is what we've been trying to wrap our minds around for a long time, Joe. I don't know if a politician can step into that and resolve it, but they can certainly help us make sense of it.
People support those ideas in theory and in good faith, probably, but then when it comes and touches their lives a little bit, it gets a little murkier. Fascinating polling. NBC's Steve Kornacki. Steve, thanks so much. Always great to see you.